Hi, my name is Sahra, and I am one half of the Ladies of Sosa podcast.
Hi, my name is Christine, and I am one half of the Ladies of Sosa podcast.
And we have a new setup today, as you guys can see. Shout out to Michael, our producer. And today we're going to be talking about all things podcasting.
Yes, in our journey, how we got started, tips and tricks and advice that we have for you guys. But
so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Stay tuned for the episode. It's going to be something different for you guys.
Yes.
What's the idea behind Ladies of Sosa? Like, what was the start of that whole thing?
Oh, Christine, can you do that one? You're good at pulling back the layers.
What's the idea behind the Ladies? Girl,
where do we even start? So Ladies of Sosa was initially a passion project that we created 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, before podcasting was even a thing. And the goal was to share the perspectives and ideas of South Sudanese youth and diaspora, especially at a time when it was very contentious between different tribes, and tribalism is very prevalent in our society, in our country. We decided to create a talk show at the time called Ladies of Sosa, 5 girls, 5 different tribes, 1 country, to kind of showcase unity within our community. And it was just strictly on YouTube. And then fast forward to 2023, when podcasting became a big thing, we decided to come back and do a podcast based really with the same type of agenda, to showcase unity, talk about different issues that we're facing in the South Sudanese community. And
so basically the relaunch happened in 2023, and our goal was to kind of bridge that gap and fill a need, because we were living in diaspora and we were seeing that there wasn't a platform where people who had similar shared experiences to us could kind of have a common place to where they can come on and share their stories, or we can kind of provide updates or promote whatever's going on within the community, and also learn about our culture. It just kind of evolved into something that is for the whole community to partake in, not just Sahra and I. So it's kind of just evolved into a really beautiful thing for our people. And I feel like it's helped to educate a lot of people, including Sahra and I. Every episode that we do, we learn so much from our guests and from the panelists that come onto the show. So basically the goal is just to change the narrative of South Sudanese people worldwide. And I feel like we're playing a huge role in doing that.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a multi-layered goal that we have.
Yes.
Because not only are we trying to showcase different perspectives of our people, but it's also to be a media platform, because we don't really have a lot of media coverage in South Sudan, or any representation in media. So it just goes beyond the surface. And also there's a lot of interesting things about South Sudan that people don't know. We're the youngest country in the world. We have 64 tribes, speak so many different languages. There's so much different cultures within the country. And so just really, putting our country and the people on the map.
Yeah.
So, yes.
As somebody who doesn't know anything about Sudanese or anything about the culture, what are some things that there's obviously some things that triggered, right? That, we should talk about, we should bring these people. So what are the things that you've noticed in your lives with your family or whatever, friends, that are kind of where people are butting heads at, that you think that, hey, you can bring them together with this podcast, kind of those kind of things? What are issues you're trying to solve, a couple maybe in particular?
That's good.
I feel like one of the issues is that we're very visible when it comes to modeling or basketball, but I don't think that there's a lot of representation as far as the voices of who these people are. Obviously, we have a very unique phenotype. When you see a South Sudanese person, you know immediately that they're South Sudanese based on their rich skin tone. So I think just being able to provide voices and show that we are regular people. I know that sometimes in public, whenever you go out somewhere and you're South Sudanese, you can feel the stares, people always looking at you. And I feel like there's a lot of questions that people have about who are these people. You might see them out, but you never really hear from them. So I think that just providing a voice to these people that you might see or come across. I know that the Olympics happened recently, and that provided a lot of exposure to us as well in a positive light. So that's what we always try to focus on, is trying to shine our people in a positive light and show that we have a rich culture, very smart, intelligent people who do amazing things, not just sports or modeling, just giving them a voice to be able to showcase who they are.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think also the narrative of South Sudan is typically surrounding war and famine and death and violence and just like negative stereotypes. And there's obviously going to be some truth to that, right? But I think what's missing is the positive narrative. And I think we show on our podcast that we can have different opinions and still be able to speak to each other and come to like a common ground, and it doesn't always have to be contentious, because I think sometimes since the narrative and what you see on the news about South Sudan is like war and ethnic conflict, you don't really see like how we actually unite and how we discuss topics with each other in a positive way, or how we don't always fight. It's not always tribalist. Like me and Christine are from two different tribes. I don't think we've ever like had an issue with each other as far as our tribes or anything like that. And anything that our friendship has been so like, organic from the beginning. And I think it's important to showcase that to our community, that we can do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not a podcast just for the community, right? Like anybody, like you said, could listen to it. Like you said, giving them a way to access and find out who you are. What kind of, I think that's, so I guess I'm trying to form that into a question. So I guess I should just ask, this podcast isn't just for the community, right?
So this podcast isn't just for the community. Obviously, initially when we started, that was our goal, but it's grown so much beyond that. And I feel like it's an avenue for a lot of people who are curious about South Sudanese people and their culture to be able to listen to everyday voices and everyday young people. So I feel like it's a way for people who are Nigerian, South African, African American, all over the world. We've had so many supporters, and that has been the most surprising thing, honestly, to see that it's a platform to where people can come and learn about South Sudanese people and get like firsthand experiences, not in like a broad general sense. It's real everyday people telling you about their real everyday experiences.
Yeah, and then the Ladies of Sosa platform is for sure for different communities, because even when we talk about certain topics, there's so many overlaps as far as culture. When we talk about dowry, Indian people can relate to that, Asian culture also practices dowry. And so it's just, there's certain things that it may not be the exact same, but there's like you can relate to it. And so we get a lot of people who want to just watch because they're curious about our culture, but also can relate to it and can add on, a different nuance or a different perspective.
Right.
So, yeah.
It is interesting how everybody's cultures are totally different, but also kind of the same in certain ways where there's like overlap.
Yeah.
Like I'm Hispanic, but like I can relate to Italians,
right?
Because it's the same type of thing,
right?
Or like it's all Spanish and Italian is learned. It's all from Latin,
right?
And so or like Filipinos, for example, like there's a lot of similarities in Filipinos and like Hispanics, right? So it's really interesting. So that's not a question; that was just a comment. All right, now we're moving into the podcast. So let's talk about like kind of I guess a big moment for you guys. So you guys started the podcast, been going for a while, and then you get a TV interview out of it. So I guess I'm trying to figure out how to form that into a question, but I guess I can ask, like, have you got any big media coverage or something like that? However you want to answer that question.
You want it?
Sure. So one of our biggest moments and biggest highlights of our podcast was being able to be on Good Morning America or Good Morning Texas. And we were able to secure an interview. It happened randomly. We got an email by a producer who asked us if we were interested in doing an interview with them. And, it's just interesting to see how far the podcast has grown
in 3 months.
This is 3 months into us relaunching into a podcast, and it's we just never imagined that we knew that we were going to reach a bigger audience, but we didn't think that we would be on like Good Morning Texas. So
for sure.
But you talked about how you got on. You're doing the podcast 3 months. You get a producer. what are you guys doing to advertise? Like, how do you advertise your podcast?
When it comes to marketing the Ladies of Sosa podcast, what we really do is teasers. Teasers is our big form of marketing. We pick the best parts of our episodes or the parts that will cause the most conversation or the most controversial.
Yeah.
And we utilize that to kind of spark engagement and get people to come to our podcast and watch the full episode. We are honestly, I feel like marketing is our weak point though, to be honest. So I would suggest if you do start a podcast, look into marketing. If you can't afford to hire somebody to do that for you, look into how to market. Get creative because you can market yourself for free. I think a lot of people think that you have to spend a lot of money to market, but I see on TikTok people marketing like products all the time, and they just go on the streets and ask people to like wear it or take a picture, and they get like viral moments, and that's a form of marketing. So I think that you have to spend a lot of money to market. But I see on TikTok people marketing like products all the time, and they just go on the streets and ask people to like wear it or take a picture, and they get like viral moments, and that's a form of marketing. So I think for us, we're still trying to work on marketing ourselves more and reach a bigger audience. But I think that if you're going to do it, like just get creative.
Yeah, and also I would add making sure you diversify your platform. So making sure that you're not just like on TikTok or just on YouTube or just on Instagram, making sure that you repurpose that content and share it, because the platform that you least expect might get engagement, or you never know who's watching. Like Facebook, we're not really on it as much, but there are some older people who they're primarily on Facebook, so they interact with our content that way. And then also having that visual element to the podcast, not just have the audio, but also have the video. I think that gives people, I guess, a choice. Some people like to watch and some people like to listen while they're doing things around the house or going on walks or whatever. So I just think that giving people options or different ways to interact and listen to your content will help I guess, get more listens or downloads that way.
Yeah. And I think also with marketing, don't get discouraged, because there's going to be some things that you post that don't get as much engagement, and that shouldn't discourage you from posting.
Yes.
Because we have videos or clips where some of them have like 50,000 views or 50,000 likes, and then some only have like 200.
Yeah.
But you always keep posting. Don't get discouraged, and don't let the comments steer you away from posting certain things, because sometimes we'll for example, we'll post a clip that's in regard to this and one topic, and people will get in the comments and be like, are you guys not done talking about this?
Yeah.
So it's like, but don't get discouraged. If that's what you want to talk about, there's going to be a lot of people that enjoy the content, and you want to listen to the audience, but just make sure that it's balanced.
Right. You can't please everyone.
Yeah.
So don't let that gauge how you put out your content. And also the most important thing is honestly consistency. Making sure that you post whenever you say you're going to post. I feel like that is the best way to build a loyal following and fan base, because they know that every single week people message us all the time and say that, if you guys don't post this week, like it throws off my whole schedule, because on Tuesdays mornings I listen to your podcast and I do this activity or I do this at work. So just making sure you're consistent, because that shows people that you're serious, and it helps them to be able to take you serious and actually support you and know that this is a real thing and not like just some random thing that you're trying and you're just going to quit in the next month or so. I think that helped us, because in the past we did struggle with consistency as far as just like before we figured out that we wanted to go the podcast route. So once we relaunched the podcast, we were able to stay consistent every single week. And I feel like that is ultimately what led to even like the Good Morning America interview, because you never know who's watching, and you never know where your next big break is going to come from, or which clip is going to go viral. It's always the ones that you least expect that do the most numbers, which is crazy. And your audience will tell you basically what they want to see from you through that. So
yes. And I want to give a shout out to Nyatan. She's our marketing strategist. She's in DC. She's really like the brains behind how we structured everything to start Ladies of Sosa podcast. Honestly, if it wasn't for her, I don't think we would be as organized.
100%.
She set up exactly when we were gonna like what episodes we were gonna record first. She just literally did a breakdown of how to start the podcast and be organized.
Even was it the mastermind that we did before we even launched, where we invited people to a Zoom link and they were able to come on and spitball ideas and tell us like the kind of content that they wanted to see. And then that's how we came up with our first episode, which is what got all of the buzz and traction going, because it was a really good topic and it was something that really was an issue within the community. So just those type of little tips and tricks that really helped us be organized and not just start putting out content, but put out content that people actually want to see.
So have people on your team in your corner that are willing to help and give you great like constructive criticism and advice that will push you in the right direction. So that's part of our marketing, is also like getting people on our team to help us where we fall short.
Yeah.
So
perfect. I think that was great. Everything you guys said too, I agree with. What was the biggest challenge you faced when starting your podcast? If there was one. If there's not, we can skip. If there's any of these questions that are not relevant, we can skip them.
Okay, no, let's think about it though, because sometimes we're like, we just got to think about it.
Yeah. Knowing what to talk about. I feel like that's always the challenge.
Right. What's the biggest challenge?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest challenge with starting the podcast is knowing what to talk about, knowing what topics to put out there. And it's every single week it's a struggle, because you want to make sure that you're not just throwing something together, because the audience is going to recognize that. They do see whenever you rush episodes, and if you start to build a following, they will let you know, like, you know what, I feel like this episode was a little rushed. Next time you guys can do this or that better. So I just feel like making sure that you have your topics together and you know what direction you want to go with it, and what is your overall theme, or what is your mission statement, whatever it is. Like, it has to have a point. You can't just be putting together random episodes. One week you're talking about this random topic, next week it's this random topic. It's hard to build a loyal fan base that way, because you're marketing to everybody and it's not like niche.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing with starting a podcast is being niche. Having a niche podcast, I think, is important, because
there's so many.
There's so many. I think it's like oversaturated, like the podcasting. There's so many different podcasts. So what makes your podcast stand out from the next podcast?
Exactly.
And I think with the Ladies of Sosa, that was really important to us to not just like get on a camera and talk about topics that are too general. Mm-hmm. We wanted to make sure that we were speaking to a certain audience, and so the podcast may not be for you, mm-hmm. But it's going to be for someone and a good amount of people. And I think it's important to know who you're speaking to, and make sure that the conversation is having a niche platform. I think that's important.
Yeah. A targeted conversation with the end goal. Like, each episode we try to say, this is the outcome that we want to get from the episode. We might not be able to solve all of these topics during that conversation, because some of these topics are so nuanced and so large, but we want to make sure we at least have takeaways for every episode, so it's not like we're just up there talking.
Yeah. So for example, if we're talking about marriage is broad, mm-hmm. But if we talk about marriage from the South Sudanese perspective, right. because our marriage customs are completely different than a lot of different cultures. There are some similarities, but it's its own culture. And so when we speak about it from that way, I think it adds like a different like touch to it. And it makes it a little bit more interesting than just like, we're going to talk about marriage today. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, we're going to talk about marriage customs in South Sudan.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, if you're going to start a podcast, try to figure out a way to set yourself apart.
How has podcasting changed you personally or professionally?
Ooh. Podcasting has changed me so much, because it's allowed me to step outside of my personal viewpoint and perspective and be able to look at things from the panelist perspective, and also be able to evolve my opinion on so many different things that I never thought I would. Just based on hearing firsthand accounts from the people that come on our show, or the panelists. I learned so much on the podcast every single episode. I always feel like I walk away just that much more like I don't know, evolved or smarter, or having a different perspective and having empathy for people who may not see things the way I see it. I don't always agree, but I always have that newfound respect. And it just makes me be able to walk in the world differently, just learning all the different things that we learn.
Yeah. And I think starting a podcast has increased my communication skills. Like facilitating conversations, I've always felt like, this is my strong point, but you really never learn until you're in the
Yes.
field. And so you really do get challenged when you're faced with so many people with different opinions and perspectives. And not only are you having to manage the conversation, but you want it to come across to the audience.
Right.
And you have to be able to communicate effectively if you want to have a good
And
conversation.
concisely, too.
Yes.
That's my biggest thing, is like not rambling.
Yeah, so it really has helped me with my communication skills, using better language, trying to stop saying and like just like trying to helping to build like my diction, and yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that this podcast has helped me with.
Perfect. So what advice would you give someone about starting a podcast?
The advice that I would give to anyone who's thinking about starting a podcast is to do your research. And just because you and your friends have great conversations in the privacy of your own home or in your car or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean that you should start a podcast. And I know that that's hard to hear, because I feel like many people think that that's the prerequisite, but you have to think that when you have a podcast, you're asking people to take 30, 45 minutes, an hour out of their day to listen to what you have to say. So just make sure you do your research and make sure that the topics that you're putting together, whether it's going to educate them or entertain them or whatever it be, just make sure that there's a purpose behind it, because you're literally taking hours or time out of people's life to consume your content.
Yeah, I agree with that. The advice I would give to someone that is looking to start a podcast is to just start. I think sometimes you overthink starting anything, and I think that goes for anything in life. But honestly, I think starting a podcast is pretty cheap. It's not as expensive as some people would think. If you can't afford the visual, just do audio. There's different ways that you can do it just to start. And I think that's the biggest advice is just start. Do your research first, obviously. Figure out the topics, and then if you have to just start with just audio, do that until you build an audience and you get enough like funds and resources to actually do the visual part. But that's what I would say.
But just stay consistent.
There you go.
Start, but stay consistent. Make sure that you are on a schedule, and no matter what happens, you show up every single week.
Yes, and be realistic. If you want to start a podcast, be realistic with your goals and your schedule. Don't start telling your audience you're going to post 4 episodes a week, and then later on you figure out I can only do 1,
Yeah, or none.
Right, or none at all, and then you're skipping days. No, just make sure that you're realistic. If you can only do 1 episode a week, start off with that. If you start building an audience and you have more time and resources to do 2 episodes, 3 episodes a week, just make sure that you're realistic with what you can put into the podcast. That way you don't disappoint your audience, because once they don't trust you anymore, you're going to lose followers, you're going to lose engagement, and you don't want that. So stay consistent, do your research, and be realistic, and start.
What do you wish you knew before you started podcasting?
What I wish I knew before we started podcasting is that you're not going to be able to please everyone, no matter how pure your intentions are behind what you're doing. So just know that there's always going to be criticism. Some of it's going to be positive and constructive, and some of it is just going to be their personal opinion, and you have to take it with a grain of salt, and you can't let it deter you from showing up the next week. No matter what happens, people are always going to have their opinion, and just how there's going to be people that don't support you and hate everything that you say and everything that you do, there's going to be people that love everything you say and everything that you do. And to just focus on those people, because that really is your core audience and who you do it for ultimately. So
yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Are there any specific tools or resources that you've used that have been a game changer for you as far as podcasting goes? It could be editing, it could be ChatGPT.
Oh, ChatGPT. Can I say that?
Yes.
Okay. One of the tools that we've been able to utilize that has been a huge help has been AI, ChatGPT. When it comes to structuring episodes or providing episode outlines to our audience, not our audience, to our panelists or our guests, it has helped tremendously with structuring episode topics because we're able to kind of feed it the general topic or what we're trying to achieve. And then it kind of organizes it all for us, which is amazing and just helps us be able to have that to work off of when we're actually doing the podcast. We might not copy everything verbatim, but it helps to have that outline and then that structure to keep us on topic and make sure that the episode does what it's supposed to do and has the outcome and the end result that we're looking for ultimately when we decide to shoot these episodes.
Yeah. One thing that I wish I would have known before starting a podcast is you're going to be doing everything. And I know that sounds like, how would you not know that? But even things that you may have not thought about, for example, like brand deals, like once your podcast starts to grow or reaches a certain level, you may start getting brand deals and people reaching out to you, asking, like how much does it cost for this or that type of promotion. And you don't want to sell yourself short.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we didn't, think about beforehand. It was something that we were like, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, and it got there
really fast,
pretty fast. And you don't want to sell yourself short. You also don't want to overprice yourself too soon. So just making sure you know your value, I think, is one thing to think about when you start a podcast. Knowing your value, that way you are able to secure these brand deals and these contracts, and finding someone to do a contract for you. Luckily for us, we had our marketing strategist who knew somebody who knew how to formulate contracts, and so she did that for us. And I think that's something that you should think about as well if you're trying to monetize.
Perfect. How do you deal with creative blocks or lack of motivation? That happens, right? Like, we have a show coming up this week.
Yeah. What the heck are we going to talk about?
Yeah. I don't even have the energy. I'm not feeling it this week.
Yeah.
It's like we could answer that all day.
I know.
How we deal with creative blocks is just pushing through it. There are some days where you're going to be like, I don't feel like posting this teaser. I don't feel like editing a teaser. We edit everything that we shoot. Christine edits the episodes. I edit the teasers. And sometimes it's just like, I just don't feel like editing today. I just don't feel like posting today. But you really have to think of this as a job. Like,
it is a job, a full-time
job. When you don't feel like going to work, guess what? You still go to work, right? Because you want to get paid, or you want to accomplish something or achieve your goals. So you have to just look at it that way. No matter what, however you're feeling that day, the teaser has to go up. The episode has to go up, and that's just a part of consistency. And I think passion drives that, because it doesn't matter how there's going to be days where you just have burnout, but your passion is always should oversee that. And
and once you get to a certain place, your audience too, because there are times when I'm just like, I don't feel like doing this, but I know no matter what, that episode has to come out Tuesday because our audience is waiting to watch it. So I feel like they motivate me because I know that there's people who are waiting to watch this. So I feel like it gives me a purpose knowing that there's people who are waiting for whatever we're trying to put out. So if we don't take it seriously, it's kind of doing a disservice to them because they are supporting us.
Yeah.
And they want to hear what we have to say, and they're excited to see what we're going to put out that next week. And if we don't show up, it's like we're probably going to lose them, and they're not going to come back to check to see what else we have going on. So I feel like another way that we kind of manage creative blocks is we kind of have these brainstorm sessions where it's like, we have an episode coming out. What are we going to put out? Let's get on the phone. And then we just spitball a lot of ideas. And then we kind of keep track of a lot of those ideas so that when we do have those mental blocks, we can go back and pull from some of the topics that we had that we didn't quite get to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And on the other hand of that, if you do have a mental block when it comes to creating your podcast or creating content, it's okay to take a break at a point. You don't want to overwhelm yourself or burn yourself out. So I think it's just important to just be honest and transparent with your audience. Me and Christine have taken breaks. It's not like, we've been consistent 90% of the time. But that other 10%, we do need it to go like have a vacation. We have to celebrate Christine's birthdays. You don't want to miss big events. You don't want to miss a big life events.
Yeah.
So just let your audience know, like, hey, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back next week, but and maybe give them something
exactly
that's
what I was
different. That's maybe not an episode, but at least it's something to sustain them.
Like a TikTok live. Like we went on vacation twice, like back to back.
Yes.
And our audience literally was like, "What's going on? You guys just went on vacation. You're going on vacation again. Like, where is the episode?"
Yeah.
So we're like, "Whoa, okay. While we're on vacation, let's just do a TikTok live so that we show up in some way. It might not be an actual structured episode that comes out on our YouTube channel and on podcast platforms, but at least they're able to interact with us in another way and kind of see what we're doing." And we did a whole Q&A, and it was really nice. So just finding a way to do something, even if you can't put out a whole full episode, just to keep in touch and tapped in with your audience.
Yeah.
What keeps you passionate about podcasting, especially in your show?
Yeah, what keeps us passionate about podcasting is just being able to relate to somebody that looks like you, that's from your culture. Again, like South Sudan doesn't have a lot of media representation. So we got one comment one time where a South Sudanese girl said, I feel seen watching the Ladies of Sosa. And I always think about that whenever we have burnout or we just don't feel like doing an episode or don't feel like showing up. I remember just seeing that comment, and we're really being a voice to a lot of people that may feel voiceless or just need to look at somebody that looks like them, speaking about certain topics, even if they disagree or agree. It's just the representation that matters. And that's my answer.
Yeah, I agree. How was the question?
The passion. What, I guess.
Oh yeah. What keeps me passionate or us passionate about the podcast is our audience, because the reach and the I don't know how to say it. What is it? The influence that has come from this podcast has been so amazing to see, because people have reached out to us from all walks of life, from the elders to the youth to people in our generation. And I just feel like it's just become this big collaboration with so many people that we don't even know that will come up to us here in Dallas at community events, or I've ran into people randomly who watch the podcast. And I just feel like the reach, because the podcast is so niche, has been incredible, because I feel like it's a targeted audience and a specific group of people who can relate to it. So I just love to see the feedback that we get from especially young girls who say like they feel seen like Sahra, because I feel like it's like talking to a younger you who didn't have something like this at the time. So I just feel like it gives us so much purpose. And that's why no matter what, no matter how tired we are, we both have busy jobs, we both have busy lives, we still make an effort, and we make it a point to make sure we show up for our audience every single week.
Yeah, and our audience is not just like an audience, it's our community.
Yes.
Because you see a lot of the same people like interacting, and we've been doing this for a little bit over a year now. So you kind of recognize the people on your platform, the people who are engaged. And even with our panelists, some of the people on our show, we didn't know until we started Ladies of Sosa, and now we're lifelong friends. Mm-hmm. Like we celebrate birthdays together, we go out together. Emmanuel, who is like one of the main faces of Ladies of Sosa, we met him on this show. Yeah. I saw him on TikTok, and I'm like, hey, you're funny, you should be on our podcast. Right. And he showed up, mm-hmm. and now we're like
He's
best
like a brother to us.
Yeah. And so it really does help build a community. And so that's what keeps me passionate. It's like, this is becoming like family. It's bigger than
it's bigger than us.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah.
What's one thing you would say to someone doubting their ability to create content?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I don't think I'm good enough or whatever.
What I would say to someone who is doubting their ability to start a podcast is, what is different about the people who already have podcasts than you? Because when Sahra and I started, we initially were not going to be on camera. We were just going to produce the podcast. And we realized that we cannot rely on other people to show up for us every single week as much as we are, because we're going to show up no matter what, because it's our project. So that kind of catapulted us and forced us to get in front of the camera. And we had a lot of fear and anxiety and self-doubt behind it. Like, oh, you know, as women, you're like, oh, you know, our hair, our makeup, our outfits, like, it's hard to be perceived, but I just feel like if you don't do it, who else will? Because no one knows like what your vision is and what you want to put out there and who can communicate it better than you. So I just think that you should just have that confidence in yourself that you're different than every single other person in this world, and what you have and you want to bring forth, it needs to be heard or it needs to be shared. So you not doing that is a disservice to the whole world, like not sharing whatever God has put in your heart.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think that creating content has to look a certain way. Like it has to look glamorous and be like sexy and shiny.
Yeah.
And I just followed somebody yesterday who's a lobster fisherman, and he shares like his experience with like going out into sea and get like fishing lobster, and he like shares fun facts and he sells them to different like, you know, restaurants. And I don't even care anything about lobster fishing, but I follow because I'm like, it's so interesting to see people's lives that are different, that's like they live a different life than you, but it's so interesting. And I love how passionate he was, and that's really what made me follow him, because he's so passionate about like lobsters, and he knows how old the lobster is, and like, you know, what's good for the market and the market price. I'm like, this is actually pretty cool. And I think that's the main thing when it comes, if you think that you're not good enough to be a content creator, there's so many different content creators that do so many different things. So just find your lane and get comfortable and go for it. What's the worst that can happen?
Right.
You'll just get no likes, probably.
Yeah.
That's not the end of the world.
Have a good day.
Right.
What is next for Ladies of Sosa in 2025? What's the peak?
Ooh. What is next for Ladies of Sosa in 2025? In 2025, we want to do a lot of big interviews. So we want to tap in with some of the heavy hitters within our country, both abroad and back home, whether it be people within the tech field or the music industry or modeling or anyone who has something going on that is important. We really want to do a lot more of those type of interviews. We just did our first ever community event that we had here in the DFW Metroplex. So definitely want to do a lot more outreach and do more within our community. The first event went so well. So we definitely want to keep that going and not let it be like a one-off thing. And I'll let Sahra add anything else that
I mean, exactly. I think what's next for the podcast is just growing our reach, getting more involved in the community, because we don't want to just be known for being on the podcast and then we just go home and mind our business. We actually want to like put our money where our mouth is and show how passionate we really are about the community, not just talking about certain topics, but also involving ourselves and trying to build relationships. And I think that the community event that MZ Studios actually recorded for us turned out really, really well. People really appreciated it. And the fact that we not only did the event, but we're able to record it and make it an episode. Right. People from Australia were able to watch it, Canada, the South Sudanese community, like everywhere.
Over 120 people, I think, actually attended, which was crazy for our first event. And we had people actually travel from other states. We had people from Nebraska and Iowa, and I think Ohio or a few other states actually drive down for the event, which is crazy to me because when we posted it, I didn't think that people would actually travel. I think it was more of a DFW thing. So I think definitely doing more of those. And then merch. We definitely want to come out with more physical products that have to do with our culture, whether it be jalabias, because that was like a really popular clip that we had on our podcast last year. So we definitely want to start selling things like that. And then maybe a trip back home, like a group trip back home. We have a travel planner who is South Sudanese that we support. So we always talk about back home, going back home, a lot of the topics back home. So why not go?
Yeah. So that's the goal for 2025. Yeah. Excited.
I'll give you a quick thought that I had, because a lady just, like two sisters in here the other day, they do TV shows and they just started a network. And I don't really know what the network is, but if you guys down the road, having like some of the co-hosts on your show, you give them their own shows. Yeah.
Because we had Emmanuel to do his own separate special.
You can all put them in your own network.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So another goal for Ladies of Sosa 2025 is to create a network. We want to be able to put people that have like ideas for a show. We just had Emmanuel do his own show, and I think that turned out very, very well. And be able to promote different people within the Ladies of Sosa podcast and the Ladies of Sosa platform. So I think even I was thinking about doing true crime. I didn't tell Christine
Ooh,
this.
okay.
I was thinking like an African true crime
Yeah,
series. Wouldn't it be
that's
cute?
different.
Yeah.
Never been done, and those videos, I know I watched them.
Yes, I love true crime, and it's like one of the biggest like podcast
Mhm.
genres is true crime. So why not make it niche and maybe do like African true crime? I wasn't sure if we should do that. Maybe we can get somebody else
Yeah.
to kind of do that.
Put
So just
people in position, because
Yeah.
we have so many people that come on our platform. Like Emmanuel started with us, and obviously he's a comedian.
Yeah.
And just giving people that platform to be able to, I guess, put out whatever it is that they're interested in, because Sarah and I cannot do every single thing, or
Yeah.
we're not good at every single topic. And
y'all gonna get tired of looking.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like just putting people in position, and then whether it be news, having someone who goes out there and gathers like different news, who's into broadcast journalism, or a comedian like Emmanuel, or true crime, or whatever the case may be, just giving people that opportunity, because the platform is so niche and we have a set audience. So I think putting people in position kind of is our goal as well for this next year.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you were able to get some tips and tricks. If you are thinking about starting a podcast, we definitely recommend that you do it. It's been such an amazing journey, beautiful journey for us. And I'm so thankful to Sarah for being my co-host and my partner in crime in this crazy, crazy journey. And yeah.
And we hope that you guys continue to ride this wave with us. We have built such a great community, a great audience, and we hope to just keep building. And again, if you're looking to start a podcast, we hope that we were able to help give a little advice. And I guess the takeaways are: do your research.
Yes.
Make sure you have a niche, or know exactly the direction of your podcast.
Yes.
Stay consistent.
Be confident.
Market, and always know the reason why you're doing it. Like, understand the bigger picture, and make sure if you're burnt out, take a break if you need to, but still try your best to stay consistent.
Get back on the horse and keep going, because there's people out there who are waiting for whatever it is that you want to put out. So with that being said, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. We're so grateful to all of our supporters. We have so much coming out this next year. We wanted to do this quick little fun interactive video, do something different, inspire those of you who want to start a podcast. So many people have started podcasts who came on our podcast.
Yeah.
So we just think that it's beautiful, a beautiful evolution, and we look forward to seeing what else everyone else has going on. And we want you guys to collaborate with us as well, obviously. So yeah.
We love you guys. Stay tuned for the next episode, and thank you for watching Ladies of Sosa.
Yeah.